So the government talking point is, hey, we're not giving away $200,000 to a developer. Well, it's time for some straight talk, McClendon Chisholm. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is the Bunker Bob Show. That's right. What they want you to believe is that corporate welfare is not going on and that a developer is not actually the beneficiary of our $200,000 in tax dollars, but the fact of the matter is, you and I know better. It's a game of semantics that they want to play, and frankly, I'm not having it, and neither should you. As a citizen of McClendon Chisholm, when they try and create the misimpression that we're not giving away $200,000, which is exactly what City Administrator Lisa Palumbo established at the last City Council meeting.
The proposed agreement as written in the packet does not give city funds to the developer. This is a city building, if we follow the development agreement as written, this is a city building a city-owned wastewater line which becomes an asset to the city. The developer is agreeing to participate in the cost, so he may develop sooner rather than later. So that's what this is.
Yeah, that's called spin. Let's look at the developer agreement and let's look at what's really happening here, because the way I read it, I don't know how you read it, but if you look, it says, in the interest of encouraging further development of this area, the City Council is willing to offer a commitment for development of wastewater line infrastructure as an incentive equal to the actual cost of the project, not to exceed $250,000, less developer contribution of $50,000. Folks, so many people all over just hate the idea of corporate welfare. The reality of it is that this is very common for cities to do when they're trying to spur commercial growth because of the government mindset. When you are in government, if you're a hammer, everything you see is a nail. And if you're in government, or if you're a big government liberal, everything you see can be solved with government. That's the difference between a free market conservative like me, who believes that the free market, that this developer who is developing a strip center, and what they're going to try, and I'm going to show you some clips today that will definitively show you that the effort being made is to try and convince you that this is a small business owner who's just struggling here, and we're trying to help him out. There's so many things wrong with this idea. This is what's called the race to the bottom for municipal cities like ours, cities like Royce City. It's amazing how many cities want to get involved in this race to the bottom, because they think that if they give money, that the only way for the private sector to succeed is for government to intervene. That's what I mean when I say that there is a difference between big government liberals and free market conservatives like myself. What the property is that we're talking about, it's highlighted in yellow. And this is kind of get your bearings. Across the street is the Shell Sonic station. If you're not familiar with it, well, then you probably don't live in McClendon Chisholm. So that's the actual location. And as I've done on another show, this is the plot that they gave you. And so it was kind of humorous to watch the Planning and Zoning Commission before they began. They were all kind of going back and forth and saying, well, where is this? How is it located? I don't get it. And the reason why is because they didn't set this schematic up in a northward bearing, which is how maps are typically done. So that's why I've done this. I've put this schematic together the way I did, so we can turn it around and then blow it up so you can kind of keep your bearing on what's being proposed here. This is the site, and this is the proposed layout of this strip center. There are two proposals, actually. There's an A and a B. One has a restaurant that is attached, and the other one has a restaurant that's detached. And then there's a rendering of what the front of it looks like, which is what you see. And so when we think about what is happening in McLennan Chisholm, what is prevailing in our city now that we have a mayor who has all his life been a government employee, you have a city council that doesn't pay attention, that is not taking any time to investigate what's happening. We have the government, we have the city council literally being led by the city bureaucrats. We have a bureaucratic mindset in our city now, and that's what we're hearing from. So what's interesting is at the beginning of the meeting, instead of the mayor leading out and saying, here's what's going on, here are the facts, here's how this thing works, he said nothing. Instead, the city administrator, Lisa Palumbo, as I talked about on the last show, who goes to Texas Municipal League conferences, where I went when I was mayor, and I was shocked to see the reality of why city government is so liberal, because everyone is thinking in terms of growth. The problem with this, the disconnect with all of this, has to do with the fact that no one is actually listening to the people. No one is actually referring back to what the citizens, through a citizen survey, 2 citizen surveys. This is the first of the 2 that you cannot find on the city website anymore. Why? Because Lorna Kippett and Mayor Short and William Dahl, Trudy Wosner, Mayor Short and Jim Bloom and who am I missing? Nathan Hodges. They don't want you to see this. They don't care about what the people think. They don't care. So what we have is a disconnect from what the people want, although they campaigned hard, didn't they? They campaigned hard to try to convince everyone that, hey, wait a minute. Remember, we're here. We're going to be conservatives. We believe in limited government. But that's not what you're seeing here. We're seeing government giving away, let me say it again, giving away $200,000 to a developer. But this is the bureaucratic mindset that we have now in McLennan Chisholm today.
McLennan Chisholm's unique that we have such a low tax rate compared to most cities in Texas, which is fabulous. But the more people that move here and purchase expensive homes, the expectation level for services rises.
Yeah. So the expectation rises. And so when you have a government mindset, you say more people, well, we need more services. When I was mayor, what I tried to do was perpetuate an idea among citizens. Hey, welcome to McLennan Chisholm. We're trying to keep our wide open spaces, more rural lifestyle. Why did people move here? Watch the video that the show I did on that this is basically coming back and reporting, following up with, where I talk about and go through what the citizens of McLennan Chisholm want. I'll show you one slide from that in a little bit. But this is where we are. This is how our city gets. This is how cities that get on this massive growth trajectory. This is why when they're launching toward more growth in government, or excuse me, in business growth, why the tax rate continues to rise and rise and rise and climbs out of control. Because there's this mindset that we have to be Rockwall, we have to be Heath, we have to be Terrell or Roy City. We have to be all of these or other cities, but that's not why citizens moved to McLennan Chisholm. It's not why people live here, because all of the amenities that we want are right there in Rockwall. But that's not what we're being told. Instead, what we're being told is this.
The only way to keep taxes low and to provide quality services for growing communities to generate revenue from other sources.
Yeah. You have to get revenue from other sources. Yeah, the only way. Did you hear what she said? By the way, I don't know if you caught that. But the only way to keep taxes low is to generate revenue from other sources. This is Jim Bloom's plan. He wants to grow our business because he says that if we increase business, if we bring more commercial development in, our taxes will be low. Really? Okay, he's been in office for almost 2 years now. They've got an economic development committee that is working on this very thing. But are our taxes, are they going lower or are they increasing?
I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of the rate of 15 cents. Then those numbers, I don't know what that would be. Increase in the tax rate, and that the ordinance levying this tax rate be approved.
So they just raised our taxes from an effective 12 cents to 15 cents because they said we need essential city services. We've got to do that to do what we need to do as a city. And now here they are saying we have enough money that we can basically give it away to a developer.
Ms. Lisa, where exactly will the money be coming from? Is it ad valorem tax money or what?
At this time, we plan on using general fund money. So those funds were generated from tax dollars.
Okay.
So this is what we get when we elect individuals who have a big government mindset and honestly who lie to you. They lied to get elected. We already have established that. And so now they've got to continue lying to us by saying, oh, we're not giving away $200,000 to a developer. No, that's not what we're doing at all. We're investing in our city's future.
Hey, Lorna.
Sure.
I can kind of speak to that. I did reach out to 3 council people in Rockwall. My sister is mayor pro tem in College Station, and then a friend down in Leander. And all of them said that they have deals similar to this, that it's not unusual. But for sometimes, like for neighborhoods and that type of thing, the burden will be more on the developer. But for spurring the potential for economic growth, that they have done deals like this, that they'll consider like roads or anything else, that they'll lay it out there.
I spoke to a couple folks too, and they said these type of deals aren't unusual with cities, but they usually use sales tax dollars, not ad valorem tax dollars. And that way you're taxing that you're getting the money from, the people that drive through and go get their Kit Kat bars, not the folks that are, living in the thing. And I was just looking at it that way as something that could be more palatable if we use tax, but we don't have that kind of.
Yeah, and so let's talk about, okay, we're going to invest $200,000. We're going to use taxpayer funds.
Jim, could I ask you a question? How does this fit into the economic development plan?
That's still not defined. I mean, obviously bringing in economic development is very appealing. The service businesses, I don't know the kind of revenue those generate, but it's I wouldn't say there is a plan out there now, but bringing in as many high revenue sources as possible. We appreciate your interest. That's exciting and a good, great first step. But
it's just one of our few corners.
It's probably our most valuable future. One out of 4, right? Out of 3 now. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. The problem is we're going to learn very quickly that is not as lucrative a corner as Mr. Bloom seems to think. The bigger issue, I think, coming from government, from our government administrator, our city administrator, Lisa Palumbo, is how she argues that this is all about trying to garner and bring in small business and helping small business.
There's been a lot of talk in the past about wanting smaller businesses and boutiques rather than large big box stores. The problem then becomes that the smaller businesses can't afford to fund infrastructure such as a wastewater line. Those smaller businesses just generally don't have, trying to get a small business established, they don't have the same funds as a Walmart or one of the larger corporations might. So that leaves the city trying to decide, do we want to spur that development to get things started, or do we want to wait and see what comes our way?
Yeah, so there's so many problems with this idea, this principle that only the Walmarts, only the big box stores can afford to do this kind of infrastructure. And I think it's funny, Dr. of Finance Scott Turnbull reminded me a week or two ago that if this was such a great deal for the city, then why wouldn't it be as great a deal for the developer? Are we really talking about a little small business here? Because when you look at what the development plan is proposing, it doesn't appear so, because let's look at what it says. It says that the developer intends to construct 1 to 2 buildings totaling approximately 12,500 to 13,500 square feet. Now, let's just do the math on that if we could. Don't you think that's a good idea? So when we think about it, this is what is being proposed is a $12,000 to $13,000, or excuse me, 13,000. Actually, it's 1,350 square foot building is what's being proposed. And what's important to understand is what the average rental for retail space in Rockwall County is, and it's about $2 a square foot. But let's not be greedy. Let's not talk in those terms. But let's do the math. So we have 12,500 square feet, and we're going to divide that, or excuse me, we're going to multiply that times, let's say, $1.50. And then when we add those things up or multiply that up, that totals $18,750 every month. And when we multiply that $18,750 a month times 12, that's $225,000 every year in revenue for that strip center. You know, I'm a small business owner. Most small businesses take an average of 2 years before they even begin to see a profit. But what Mrs. Palumbo, what the city administrator, what apparently our city council is arguing is, well, we've got to push them a little further. We've got to advance them a lot further. You need to watch the previous show on this, because you start to understand who this developer is. I have argued and I have stated that I think this developer is unscrupulous. When you start looking at all of the things this developer is a part of, when you look at the kind of businesses that he's associated with, where the corporate headquarters is located, I've shown you all these things. You start to ask yourself, wait a minute, this doesn't seem like as good a deal as the city is trying to make it out to be. So the question is, do they have to have this wastewater line? Well, Lisa Palumbo answers that question.
So that's the dilemma, and why we're considering the development agreement today. The developer wants to bring business to town, but cannot without the infrastructure. The other alternative is to have a business on a septic system, which we looked at originally. We already have one example of this in town, and we've had some issues with it. Also, it's not generally considered the best and highest use for commercial property along a major thoroughfare to use part of the property as a septic field. So businesses need that prime retail land for their business and for parking for customers. A septic field just doesn't generate business.
A septic field just doesn't generate business. But a wastewater line generates business? No. The Shell station is on septic. And why? Because they didn't want to invest in the infrastructure. And so they made compromises to their building. If this developer says we can't build here unless we have the infrastructure, I think that's going to be a very good thing. Because of what we're going to talk a little bit, I'm going to show you a little bit more about what is happening here so that you get a better feel. You see, when I said this developer is unscrupulous and is not who they seem to be, there's a reason I'm saying that, because of what is in the developer agreement. The developer intends that one building or a part thereof will be as a dine-in restaurant. So if it's designed for a dine-in restaurant, let's keep looking at that. And
what we want to do is limit the dine-in restaurants, okay? Because then my parking count starts shooting up, okay? needless to say, in the 11,000 square foot, we could probably have a Subway or, a Domino's delivery carry-out unit. A concept that doesn't require dine-in, so, and it doesn't increase the parking counts. So this whole plan is based on square footage versus parking counts.
Okay. So the development agreement says that it's going to be a dine-in restaurant. And what's interesting, if you listen to or watch the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the city planner actually presented it to Planning and Zoning that way. He was reading from the developer agreement stating that it is going to be a dine-in restaurant. But we've just heard that the developer has no intention of making this a dine-in restaurant. And so this is why this other part of the development agreement is so important. It says if marketing for dine-in restaurants is unsuccessful and developer fails to obtain a restaurant tenant within 180 days of marketing for such, developer may request council to consider an alternate pre-approved use in the planned development zoning for the addition. The fact is they have no intention of making this a dine-in restaurant. This is intended to be a fast food restaurant. And how do I know that? Because it's going to have a drive-through as part of the building. Just listen to this.
So looking at these two plans, you have A1 and B1. B1 has the detached restaurant facility. You could be doing a drive-through with both of them?
Both of them, yes.
Okay.
A drive-through with both of them. What kind of restaurants use a drive-through? It's funny, in that December 10th meeting, the developer said, 90% of businesses need a drive-through. And I've looked into that, and that's just a complete falsehood. 90% of fast food restaurants do need a drive-through, but 90% of restaurants do not use a drive-through.
I also do a lot of Burger Kings and Wendy's and a lot of QSR restaurants. And really, they would want more land area versus what we've got here. So that's kind of targeting, like you said, maybe some local restaurateur, some local flair. But you never know, Wendy's might come in and say, hey, that's enough space for me.
Yeah, this is smoke and mirrors. They're saying everything that the city council wants to say. City council has not read the fine print. They've not read the fact that after 180 days, the developer has a right to put in a fast food restaurant, which is exactly what they intend to do. This is one slide, just one slide from that city survey. This is something that citizens said that they would not like to see. And if you look, it says fast food restaurants is right there at the top. So the fact of the matter is, folks, what we're going to see in this strip center is going to be something like a Subway or a Domino's pizza, almost certainly. And that's not something that the citizens care about. And if you remember back when City Administrator Palumbo said, we can either wait and see what comes, or we can be proactive, basically, and try to get the right kind of businesses in. My question to Mrs. Palumbo and to the City Council is, okay, so what it sounds like you're saying is that you actually went out and you found this developer and you have been working on this negotiation. That's absolutely false. This developer bought this property without any comment or any input from the city. This developer is basically bought this for because this is what this developer does. You can see the other strip centers that the developer has built on the last show. What I find fascinating, and this is where the rubber meets the road when it comes to conservatives and liberals. I think that what's interesting about what Jim Bloom is proposing is Jim Bloom's idea of what kind of commercial businesses are going to come into the city of McLennan-Chisholm are different from what the reality of our city is.
It's been brought up that typically the types of tenants that go in your buildings are more service-oriented, which don't really generate sales tax revenue for the city. So it's a nice service for the city, but beyond the property tax, if I'm not mistaken, it's not a big revenue generator. And is there a way to attract more retail-oriented business as opposed to service-oriented? Like let's say a CPA or an insurance company. Those are nice to have. It could be convenient for people, but it's not going to bring in revenue, which is kind of important for us right now.
In terms of revenue for the city, they do pay taxes, the businesses, for their personal properties that they have inside their building, plus inventory taxes. Generally, it's they do bring taxes revenue. Retail and services business, they both bring, but I'm not sure the expectation of the city of what level, but they do bring a tax dollar to the city.
Yeah, in Jim Bloom's defense, he's crestfallen about it, and you'll see that because he's about to get slapped in the face with some reality about what the property in question can and cannot be used for. The fundamental problem is we don't have a development agreement a development plan for the city. Mr. Bloom's great vision for the city of McLennan-Chisholm, which is the same great vision for the city of McLennan-Chisholm as former Mayor Mike Donegan, who never wrote anything out. He just started signing these developer agreements and moving forward without telling anyone what he's doing. And ironically, Mr. Donegan is on the Economic Development Committee. What do you expect? So all of this, you're hearing the developers say, well, they do kind of pay taxes. They have to pay inventory taxes, but that's not what the kind of businesses Jim Bloom is talking about bringing in. He's talking about retail that can actually provide sales tax. Now, a fast food restaurant can do that, but that's not it. I don't think that's what Jim Bloom wants. Maybe it is. I could be wrong, but I think his idea of this, especially that this is one of the most valuable corners, is not really coming true because service businesses do not provide sales tax revenue. But Mr. Polani also talks about how what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring jobs to McLennan-Chisholm. This is a bedroom community. Most everybody moves here not to find a job, but so that you can be away from the city. And we can see the stars at night. We can hear the coyotes howling. That's kind of the magic of McLennan-Chisholm, or it was until Mike Donegan became mayor. Thank you, former Mayor Mike Donegan. But now we have to deal with commercial development now that 205 is about to expand in the next 8 or 10 years. And so what are we going to do?
I might want to add just something. This particular lot, I can't remember if it was in your packet or not, but it is heavily deed restricted. When it was sold, it's got a list of things that are prohibited. So things like pharmacies, anything that could basically compete with Brookshires, who owns a lot next door, is prohibited from being there. So that does limit some of the retail opportunities they have and leans it a little bit more towards the service types.
So what the problem is that there's really not a lot of businesses that can go in that would generate sales tax revenue that Mr. Bloom is talking about, which basically means that this is going to be a service type strip center. The development agreement that she's talking about is between the seller, Whittle Properties. We've talked about Mr. Whittle. Mr. Whittle, by the way, is the same Mr. Whittle who tried to put the Dollar Tree into McLennan-Chisholm that's right behind the Shell station, where we came out and we said, citizens came out and said, this is not what we want. So Brookshires, that's Brookshires circled there, is right next to it. If you see, there's McLennan Chisholm Commercial Holdings right below it, and the 3 properties, I guess, right below and around it, property owners, 4 properties. All of those basically were owned, including the Brookshires, where the Brookshires Grocery Store Company is located, all owned by Whittle, basically, a guy named Whittle. Last name of Whittle, I forget, it's Robert Whittle, that's what it is. And Mr. Whittle basically decided for us, for the citizens of McLennan Chisholm, if you remember the whole thing that he talked about when he came before City Council about, or the Board of Adjustment regarding the Dollar Tree is, he's tried to find a Neiman Marcus. He just can't find any Neiman Marcus that wants to come into our city. He's a complete ass. Sorry, but that's who he is. But he decides what's good for communities. He decides how a community is going to be developed, and people like Mike Donegan just pucker up big time and smooch hard on his hind quarters because they love them some Robert Whittle. Mr. Whittle, the problem is, Mr. Whittle basically created this development agreement that is really bad for our city in so many different ways. And when he sold the Brookshires that property, he owned all the other properties. So he basically created in the agreement that for the next 50 years, those properties could basically not compete with Brookshires in any way, shape, manner, or form. And that comes in the form of retail, because Brookshires can pretty much do anything. The irony of this is that Brookshires is not coming to McLennan Chisholm. Brookshires will not be putting a grocery store in here.
I have a question. I don't know if it has to be answered in executive session or not, but is there a way that, Brookshires is essentially holding that corner kind of hostage, right? Preventing us from doing what we need to do to grow as a city.
They have a 50-year
deed restriction.
Wow.
Yeah, so they can put a dry cleaner in, and this guy Polani, he one of the things he has is dry cleaners. But there's just, you can't put a donut shop in. You can't put a lot of things in that you would want to, I guess, put into a strip center. So there's so many bad things about this deal. And the problem is, okay, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. There's nothing that the city of McLennan Chisholm can do to stop them. But you can sure as heck not give them $200,000 to help them unless you have a government mindset. Okay, so we're not giving the developer the money to put in the infrastructure. So I'm guessing that the city then, it stands to reason, if Mrs. Palumbo wants us and the city wants us to believe that, hey, we're not giving the money to a developer, well, then it stands to reason then that the city is going to be in charge of that development and the infrastructure.
Lisa, one question I had, just looking through the agreement itself, I don't know if I read this wrong or not, but it sounded like that the developer was going to be the one basically in charge of hiring the company to put the water line in, and they were going to be overseeing it versus we as a city doing that. Is that correct?
We did put the burden on the developer's engineer to take care of most of that. They would still have to use appropriate bidding and go out and find the best company, most qualified company at the best price to do the job as far as the installation of the sewer line.
Okay.
We don't bid out engineering services because that's a little bit different. That's a professional, and we don't do lowest bidder on things like engineers and architects. But for the work itself, that engineer would be responsible for putting out that bid, and we would want to see that advertisement. We want to advertise in our newspaper where we normally advertise those things, probably on our website. That they'd have to go through a process just like if we were doing it ourselves. But we put the burden on them to do it, just to relieve us from some of that burden.
If it helps any, some of the things that we spend money on are regulated by 252 of the local government code, the bidding, the purchasing section of local government code, and those are for like contracting deals. Hey, we got a project, we need to have it constructed, we're going to get the lowest responsible bidder. boom, 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 that's taken care of. Other things are governed by 2264 of the government code. And those are some specialized professional services such as accounting, engineering, and things like that. That is a completely different, you got to get you do a request for qualifications, and then you choose the most qualified individual, and then you can negotiate price. So that's why there's a little bit, there was a few different steps there between the two different things.
Yeah, the first person you heard from was Lisa Palumbo, the city administrator. The second is Mike Holla, the city attorney. And if you understood what he said, you're not alone. Well, you are alone, because he talked in so many circles, and that's what he does. He's an attorney. What is he saying? The bottom line, the question was, who's in charge of it? Who's basically paying for this? Since this is a city-owned infrastructure, okay? And remember, at the beginning, go back and listen to Lisa Palumbo talk about how this is a property of the city. This is infrastructure for the city, but we're going to let this developer, this very shady developer, in my opinion. And if you've watched the last show, then you would, I find it hard to believe that you wouldn't agree with that. This person is going to get the funds, and they're going to be the ones that basically take care of all of those processes. And are there going to be the standards? They say they have to get bids. They have to jump through certain hoops. But what part of that is regulated by the city? Where is the city going in that? She said, we certainly want to look at it. We want to know what they're doing. But wait a minute. This is taxpayer dollars. So now, explain to me again how this is not giving money to a developer, because that's what it seems like to me. Doesn't it seem like it to you? I think most people would agree that that's exactly what's happening. And so I think that what's important is to understand, as I've highlighted before, that the city council has really kind of banged the drum on economic development in our city. And Jim Bloom has put together this economic development committee, this ad hoc committee. How many times have they met over the last year since they've been together? My understanding, it's 4 or less, and one of those times was when Melody Osorio and another member of the committee, who is not Mike Donegan, Mark Kippett, or Jim Bloom, met. They were supposed to meet as a group, and they didn't. There's only 2 of them, and what's interesting is Melody Osorio, a member of this committee, someone who ran for city council, but you said you didn't want her, you wanted Jim Bloom instead. Melody Osorio is the only member of the committee to submit a formal proposal and a presentation for the benefit of the committee. The only one who has provided anything in writing. This committee has not met in the last several months. And as far as I understand, my understanding is that Mrs. Osorio is just now learning of this meeting. She got a notice about this meeting, and she got a notice that said that this is the rescheduled time is going to be today at 5:30. And her question, because I reached out to Mrs. Osorio, I just said, hey, I know you're on this committee. Can you share with me some things that are going on? How often do you meet? What kind of things have you guys generated? Any kind of reports? Anything that you can give us? And she says that she has been participating. She attends these meetings. A lot of the people there don't, who are supposed to be leading this. And it's basically a do-nothing committee. So here's what's interesting. They're meeting tonight. I wonder why. Why do you think that they're meeting tonight? Is it because oh my goodness, we're getting railed by Steinhagen out there, who keeps highlighting the fact that we don't have an economic development plan. I suspect that the purpose of tonight's meeting is to come together and formulate a formal economic development plan. Something tells me that someone is going to come to that meeting tonight prepared with a plan. And it's not going to be Melody Osario's plan. I'm pretty sure of that. It's going to be a plan that they are going to present to the city council and say, here it is. Here's our economic development plan. When this committee hadn't met for months, there's no minute. But here's another thing to take into consideration, folks. There's been no minutes taken of these meetings. These are closed meetings, and from what I understand, Ms. Osario has told me that tonight's meeting is supposed to be open, that they're actually going to be meeting in council chambers because another citizen is asked to be able to attend. And so I said, okay, great. So I don't have to make an appeal to the district attorney, because there are some things about this committee that lend itself to the Texas Open Meetings Act. But I'm prepared for that. I've got all that ready in case they say, well, we're just going to do this behind closed doors, as they do everything else. So not only am I going to attend, but I'm also bringing my camera equipment. I'll be broadcasting live tonight so that you can see. I'm not going to be interjecting unless they ask my opinion. I don't mind giving my opinion. I'm not sure how many people realize that, but yeah, I don't mind giving my opinion. Yeah, I know you know that. But the fact of the matter is, this developer agreement, this giving this money to this city, to this developer is such a bad idea, and we should not be doing it. There is no plan in place. There is very little benefit that will come from that to the city. And if the city wants to invest infrastructure, they're going to have to give us a better reason, especially if they're going to invest tax dollars in infrastructure to try and cultivate economic growth. I think that to me is a big sham. So I hope that and pray that the city council will start to see the error of their way, and will start to make better decisions. But I guess tonight, when I get to the city to this economic development committee meeting, I guess we'll know more than we know now, because right now we don't know hardly anything. And that's the frustrating thing about the whole thing, is that we know so little about what's happening in this economic development committee, and what the plan for our city really is. And I think we deserve to know, don't you? I do. Well, I hope that you'll tune in maybe tonight, and I certainly will be adding commentary in the days following. So until then, I hope to see you another when we're there tonight. I'll be talking to you a little bit and introducing what's going on, so that you're not lost about the process. If they let me in at all, I guess we'll see how open this government really is. So I hope to see you then. If not, we'll see you next time. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed, it's not too late to do so. So I sure hope you do, so that you can keep up to date on what we're doing, and that you're notified when a new show comes up. So until then, I look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and we will see you next time.